Hi everyone, welcome back to today's Love Transformation class. And I've got a really interesting conversation today because I hear so often from so many of you that the challenge from going from meeting someone and starting off casually dating through to a committed relationship can be really tricky to navigate. So I'm excited to bring on today's guest expert who has a specialty in sharing a beautiful process for you to really maximize the chances of getting that beautiful committed relationship hereafter. And thank you and welcome, Laura.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and honor, and I can't wait to have this conversation.
Yes, well, it's been a little while coming, and I'm super excited that we finally got a chance to do this recording. And because I know you talk a lot and you've worked a lot with women who have had struggles going from meeting someone and casually dating through to actually getting them to commit. And oftentimes we like to say that it's the guy's problem and no guys want to commit, or they're all emotionally unavailable. But why don't we just sort of flip things around a little bit, and can you share with us what you see as being some of the common mistakes as women perhaps we're making in those early stages?
Sure, yeah. And let me tell you a little bit about how sort of this became my body of work, or a big portion of my body of work. So I'm a certified dating expert, and I work with successful singles to really help them heal heartbreak, use courtship as a way to create their forever love. So the casual dating environment can be really frustrating. When you are ready to find your soulmate, you're ready to find that forever love. And one of the biggest ways in which I help my clients is help them get really clear, like, what is it you desire? Number one, get clarity, and then share that. Don't be afraid to put in your profile that you're looking for a relationship, or when you go on a first date, hey, like, what do you're dating, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a relationship? Are you looking for casual dating? I think being clear on what you desire, and then I think also being really aware of what someone else desires. Single men out there who are looking for a relationship, who are ready for a high quality, high caliber partnership for life, they're fine telling you they're looking for a relationship, and they're eager to have that conversation to find a woman who's interested in the same. So one of the big differences between just casual dating and courtship is more of this, maybe a more traditional idea of a first date, or how a first date comes about. I teach women to be really assertive, especially with online dating. If you want to have a real date, meaning a man plans the date for you, I tell women, hey, you're having a great chat. When the momentum is good, then say, I'd love to have a date this week. I'm available Saturday if you'd like to plan one for us. Because women aren't asking, men are offering drinks, or, swing by and watch part of the game, or do you want to meet for coffee? I'm a busy female entrepreneur. I don't have a lot of time for coffee and drink dates. I'm also a single mom who live in the suburbs. And so I encourage women, tell him you're available for a real date. It is a refreshing thing for a man to hear, because men enjoy planning dates. They enjoy being appreciated, and it's a way to show respect. So let me give you an example. In addition to just casual dinners, a first date can be anything. So the purpose of kind of having that initial conversation between the two of you, banter online or banter with online dating, texting back and forth, or even speaking on the phone, even better, to find something you both would enjoy and to plan that as a first date. That first date's the time to create a connection and do something you both enjoy. So whether that be a picnic, a hike, a concert, and maybe it is, for me, it's amazing tapas. I love really high flavor food. I love sharing food with a date. I think there's something really intimate about that. So I think that's sort of what some of the first steps is: be assertive. Number one, share that you're interested in a relationship. That tells men right up front, she's not up for casual dating. And number two, tell them you're available for them to plan a date if they'd like to do so. It's a great way to find out if a man's really interested in a relationship, because if he is, he's happy and honored to plan a date for you.
Okay. I have so many questions now because I love this, because it does go a little bit against what perhaps in modern day, some of the strategy that we've been using. So first of all, what I want to ask is, particularly with the app dating, when we have less space for information, less space to share about ourselves, if we're using Tinder, Bumble, or one of those similar types of apps, how do we communicate that we are looking for a relationship and not something casual in the small space we have on the apps?
Absolutely. So there's one abbreviation, LTR, long-term relationship. I have all my clients include that. Number one, most people who are looking for a long-term relationship who've been in the dating world a while, they know the abbreviation. The other thing I have my clients do, literally looking for real love, looking for lasting love. I have men and women just put that in there so that that is a clear message. I'm not looking just to casually date. I'm interested in people who are interested in the same thing, something long-term. The other beauty is more and more of these apps, because I'd use a number of them during periods of time, especially after they launch, to kind of see what's the vibe. Is this a good fit for my clients? A lot of them now have the option, looking for casual or looking for a relationship. And you can check that. And right off the bat, you know, if you're looking for the love of your life, you're not going to swipe on and likely not going to go out with somebody who's just looking for fun or casual dating. And you actually know that now. So I think technology is catching on to our dating culture. It's a direct reflection of the questions people are asking, right? And the more you know about someone, the better you can tell the caliber of, match or connection that you potentially may have with someone. The biggest thing with online dating is getting out and meeting people in person. That's really where you can tell if you've got that connection, if you've got that natural chemistry, if you've got that ease and flow of the conversation. So one can use abbreviations in the modern dating world, long-term relationship, LTR, or, looking for love, or yet again, check that box, looking for a relationship. And that will tell to someone that's exactly what you're doing. I think that's the first step to moving toward what you desire, is clarifying it and sharing it.
Yeah, great,
Mm-hmm.
great. Okay, so we've made a connection with someone, we've been chatting online. I really love that you encourage the female to be assertive and share, I'm available at this time if you'd like to plan a date for us. What happens though if he throws it back and says, what would you like to do? Because I know this happens a lot as females. We end up planning the date because he says, oh, I don't know, we can do whatever you like. What would you like to do? So how do we handle that?
Absolutely. So that one is easier to navigate than you might think. So, and in the handout that they will receive today, there's a list of 60 date ideas in there. I provide my clients with a list of 60 unique date ideas, lots of different things. So for women, what I encourage them to do is start engaging in conversation with things you would enjoy doing with that person on a date, even from the very beginning. So when you're looking at a profile, you're looking for ways to connect. What do we have? What are the hobbies or activities we do that are in common? So when that conversation comes up, you can say, you know what I love? Like, I love pro hockey. I love to go and watch pro hockey in Nashville. I love live music. And so I will toss that out there, kind of in the beginning, to get the man thinking about, from the very first time I reach out, okay, so I know she enjoys these things already. Is there something coming up? And then I have my clients every week look at a list. A lot of big cities have a list that comes out of all the activities over the weekend, like art festival, music festival, beer festival, wine festival. And then when a man asks a woman, what you'd like to do, I tell the women, take a look at what's happening, where you'd like to go. Is there a restaurant in your city that you haven't tried yet? Is there a really cool, we have a lot of bourbon in the South, in Tennessee and Kentucky. So is there a bourbon tasting coming up you'd like to attend? And actually say to the guy, you know what? There's a hockey game in town this weekend. There's a soccer game. There's, live music playing at the park. I would actually make some pretty clear suggestions of things you would enjoy, and even better, things that you've already talked about to some extent that are interests of his, because that naturally creates a connection. It naturally creates ease when you show up for the date and it's something you enjoy. I'm not much of a hiker or a biker or a camper. I'm not an outdoorsy girl, but I have a lot of clients who are. And so I'll say to them, hey, see if he wants to go on a bike ride on Saturday. It doesn't have to be a stuffy formal date. A first date can be something, the goal is something you both enjoy, so you create a connection. So when men ask, you will now have a guide of 60 unique date ideas, and they're broken up into categories. And I'll make sure that I also provide that to you, so you can absolutely share that with everyone. And you always have ideas, and you always are looking for things that you would like to do with them, that they share in common, because who wouldn't enjoy that date? Even if he's not the best date you've ever had, if you're doing something you enjoy, you're certainly going to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, awesome. I'm excited to dive into your beautiful idea of how we build a courtship that maximizes the chances that we're nurturing that that new relationship through to a beautiful commitment. But before we do, I just wanted to ask, because I've had this come up before, when he plans a date and invites us over, it says, I'm a really good cook, I'm going to cook you dinner.
Sorry.
When he plans a date, that it's perhaps too early. Like, we all know what's,
we all know.
Okay, so how do we respond to that with grace, without we're still with expressing interest, but letting him know we'd rather save that till later on?
Absolutely. And this is actually something really interesting. I was married a decade, and so I rolled back out having actually never dated as an adult in my early 30s, and I didn't realize so many men thought they could cook. And so I quickly learned, oh, I need to ask, like, has he been to culinary? I need to start asking, he's been to culinary school? Did he work in a restaurant? Like, unless he's got some highly specialized cooking skills, I'm not going to buy that second date invitation anymore. I made that mistake once. He thankfully was an amazing cook. He'd been trained. But after that, I realized not every man is an equal cook. So the way I handle that typically, and that you're exactly right, that comes up. That's an opportunity for a bottle of wine, for you to be in their house. I really, especially with courtship, those first 3 or 4 dates, I think, are really important for those to be done in public, for those to be done somewhere out away from your home. The reason being, there's an opportunity for you to engage in more conversation. There's an opportunity for you to, see really if there's a common interest, if you can carry a conversation without that pressure of there also being the physical intimate contact as well, which potentially could come too early if you're not, ready emotionally to invest. And you're going to know after 3 or 4 dates, you're going to have a much better sense, especially as really intuitive women. We know after a few dates, like, is this a great match? Is this a connection I want to foster and go deeper and share a more intimate relationship with him? As far as the cooking, all that to say, when they offer to cook, thank you so much. I really appreciate that offer. But it's a beautiful weekend. I'd love to go. I'd love to go do these things. And I think, come back and say, thank you so much for that offer. Maybe I can take you up later. I think for women, it's really important for men to know that they're desired. You want to spend that time with them, that you're attracted to them. And I think really showing grace and gratitude in that moment. So thank you so much for offering to cook. You know what? I think I'd really love for us to go do something else this weekend and make an alternate suggestion and say, maybe in the future you can cook for me. I think it's also a good chance to say, so what are your favorite dishes? And here's a trick. What are your best dishes? And then say, okay, well, then we won't go to an Italian restaurant to eat. How about let's just go do burgers? Or if they're big on grilling, say, okay, well, then how about let's go and let's do Mexican food this weekend, and then we can wait, and then you can grill for me, later on once we know each other better. So sometimes switching the cuisine around. So it's not personal. It's just that I'll save that for you. Again, it creates that desire. I'd love for you to cook for me. And thank you for that invitation. But this weekend, let's just do something different, and we'll save that for later. You can show off your grilling skills and your bottle of wine, after we've had a few more dates and know you better. Does that help? I mean, I think it's a great transition. It's a great way to kind of, again, show him respect, desire, graciousness, stay in your femininity, stay in your feminine power, but also to say, let's do this first to get to know one another. Let's spend this time where it's just you and I doing something we enjoy.
Yeah, I love that. And so many men these days have a bit of a complaint with single women that we perhaps get a little bit too far ahead of ourselves, that we ask some of the hard questions a little bit too early. So what I'd really love to know, with your idea of building deep connection within that courtship phase, what sort of topics of conversation, how do we navigate talking about our desires without crossing the boundary of asking too much too soon, perhaps putting him off?
Yeah. And that there's a balance there. I think what I see oftentimes, especially, and I was one of these women, I had so many walls up, from being an attorney for a decade. And, it was very different than the job I do now as a love relationship and dating coach. I think that, figuring out the balance of sharing too much. So I tell clients, let's rewrite your divorce story so that when you do share your divorce, you have something empowering to say with that. instead of sort of going down that rabbit hole and fueling the divorce or the bad relationship or the heartbreak conversation. We all have that. But I think that's important to make sure you're not sort of creating, I think with divorce and with ended relationships, you don't always have to share all of your emotions with the person you're out on a first or second date with. That's one thing to kind of be mindful of, is they don't need to know of the trauma or the drama in the past. Focus on who you are today, because many of us, we're not the woman we were in our marriage years ago. We've transformed. We've become a new woman. We've become a stronger woman, a more courageous woman. I think that I encourage my clients on a first date, talk about, hey, what are you looking for in dating? Have you been able to find it? What are the, this conversation came up recently, someone referenced to marriage. And I said, well, is that something you would consider again in the future? Because they'd referenced it sort of in a very negative way, and, married and obviously divorced now. And I said, is marriage something on the cards in the table for you in the future? So I think it's finding, I think especially with divorced men, saying again, do you see yourself getting married again? Just kind of opening that door very softly. Also saying, I'm at a point in my life where I'd really love to share all these experiences. So it's not always just saying, I'm looking for a really committed relationship. Yes, you can say that, but I think you do it in the context of, I would love to really share my travel experience with someone. I have a colleague who has a trip planned to Spain, and she's like, I would really love to take an amazing man that I'm dating on that trip with me. That's a great conversation to have. Love to travel, but I really would love to just share those experiences with someone else. That invites them into that space where they can dialogue as well. And you can discover if they have an interest to travel. If they're afraid to fly and your lifelong dream is to travel the world with a handsome man, then they may not be a great match, right? And so that's one way to navigate it, is just, what are the things you're looking forward to sharing with someone in the future? And kids, like, do they have children? I have my clients pretty early on, especially women who want to have more children. He has kids, ask about his relationship with his children, kind of sense that out early. And then, is he interested in having more? Again, the apps oftentimes will have, don't, more, desire children. You have that information. If that's something important to you, that's also another topic you can broach early enough, because it's already been asked on a dating app. It's not like it's a taboo topic.
Yeah. Okay. So aside from sharing too much information about the negative aspects of a past relationship or a divorce, what other sorts of things shouldn't perhaps we share or overshare about in the early stages of a new connection?
I think negative dating experiences is something as well to just kind of be mindful of, that you're not oversharing all of those, because you want the appearance, especially if you're looking for a relationship, you want someone to take you seriously, not that, you're out on dates 7 days a week or 5 days a week. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. But, if you're looking for your soulmate, you may just kind of navigate that conversation a little bit differently. Things to avoid, normally you would say religion and politics, but yet again, online dating actually lists sort of where you fall in those categories. Controversial topics, particularly in the media, I encourage people to stay away from, because those can be really emotionally charged. Conversations to avoid. I spend a lot more time helping my clients create conversations instead of do quite as much. I think the biggest thing is just people sharing really too much of their life story at the beginning. I never encourage my clients to hide anything, but on that first date, you're focused on, and even the second date, you're really focused on establishing a connection. And it doesn't always have to be by sharing something that's vulnerable emotionally. That can be making yourself really present in that moment, making sure that you're not distracted, making sure that you're engaging conversation, that you're really keeping an eye on not consuming more than 2 alcoholic beverages during the date. So, and I think a lot of times alcohol then can fuel those topics that come up, and then they come across as even more emotionally charged. The things we want to avoid, once we're less inhibited, then those things tend to come up. And that can really throw a damper on a date really fast, because we, become a little more uninhibited. And so I think some of it is filling out naturally what you're doing. The other thing is feeling out sort of naturally the flow of the conversation. And oftentimes you're not going to be just sitting at a table for each date. You're going to want to do activities and go and do things, do physical things together, whatever that might be, and sharing conversation. So I think focusing on the connection you can create, focusing on the commonality, focusing on things you can laugh about, things you can imagine doing together in 20 years. Those are the things to focus on and enjoy, as opposed to all the things you need to avoid. I think, that for me, that's what I really encourage my clients. And if they're really fully present in the moment on that date, they're a lot less focused on that past trauma, a lot less focused on that past heartbreak, and it's a lot less present on that date. And even if it does come up, it's not as emotionally charged.
I'm not sure if you've heard this as well, Laura, but a while back, there was some research done about some of the key factors that cause men and women to bond emotionally. And one of the things that they noted was doing some kind of adrenaline, some kind of like high risk activity where there's a lot of adrenaline in the system causes more of an attraction. And I notice if you watch shows like The Bachelor, that they often include things like bungee jumping and lots of adrenaline type things. And it really enhances that bonding experience. Just a little tip maybe for some of the ladies watching, if they can incorporate some of those into a date. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and it's interesting, and I've not watched The Bachelor or Bachelorette until this year. And so now I'm like, there's some interesting topics to talk about. The key to The Bachelor is the fact they have real dates. They have group dates. They have real one-on-one dates that are all day and into the evening. They aren't casually dating on The Bachelor. He is participating in courtship. Now, it may be with, at the moment, 13 women at a time, but nonetheless, they are using a fairly, traditional courtship model. There's very limited opportunities for intimacy in the beginning. They're having dates in public. They're not hiding in a hotel somewhere. They're not in a bar. Alcohol is limited. A lot of those traditional courtship skills, the man asks the woman out on a date with a date card, and he plans the date, or at least the producers of the show do. But I think he has some input at somewhere in there. So I actually think that is a pretty good show, because then they do think about doing activities together every single time that he thinks she will enjoy. And that's one of the real keys in courtship. I think in those initial conversations, when you're finding things you share in common, those naturally translate into an enjoyable date. And on every date that the current bachelor is going on, he says to her at the beginning, I felt like you would really enjoy this date, and I wanted to have this experience with you.
Yes, and it's so important. What else can we do to really, I guess, flesh out this early stage dating into this beautiful courtship? How can we make this special, memorable, position ourselves as that high value woman? What else can we do?
One of the other things is communication. Not only just, we talked a lot sort of about on the date, being there, staying connected, communicating on the date. Communicating in between the dates, I think, is really important. And you mentioned earlier, sometimes women can, and I call it outpacing, they can outpace the man in the relationship, or vice versa. I think a lot of that happens, women, my clients, I've seen them experience that if there's a lot of texting at the beginning, there's a high emotional bond in the beginning, and there are also a lot of expectations when they meet in person for there to already be that connection. Like, if conversation were this easy, then great, meeting in person should be fantastic. It can be a totally different dynamic. And so I teach my men, if you're interested in a woman, you have to talk to her within a 24-hour time period. Don't ever go over a day without speaking with her. And so I think, for the men, I encourage them, text her or call her every day to interact with her. For women, obviously you're going to want him to reach out and to pursue, but I'm also not opposed to you sending him a message to start the dialogue again. I think that daily dialogue, even if it's brief, it's important, because when you stay connected, and for a woman, she stays, especially if you're planning the second date and things are going well, you're wanting to learn more about him. It's an opportunity for you to gather more information throughout the week. It's an opportunity for you to better understand his life and yours. So one of the big things with courtship is more frequent dates, maybe twice a week, more if you live in the same city and you don't have kids. but it's not every day because you're not swinging by. It's a planned event. There's an invitation to the event, and communicating between the event about the excitement. Don't hide the fact you're excited to have a date. You know, men want to be desired. We want to be desired. And not necessarily in just a purely physical sense, but our presence, our time. You know, men enjoy being around a feminine woman. They enjoy being around women. That's why they date for, you know, multitude of reasons, but they're dating women. And so I think one of the really important things, when you have that ongoing communication, you're not wondering the day before if you're actually going to have your date or not. You're not having to confirm because you've been texting throughout the week. Now, I think that there's a difference in being needy and being a really confident woman who just says, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. But I think that communication is the one thing that really can build even stronger foundation for a relationship. I do encourage my clients, call on the phone a couple of times a week, you know, because most people aren't doing that with casual dating. It's a text here and there, Facebook message, Bumble message, whatever. They're not getting on the phone and giving the opportunity for a broader conversation, for you to talk about things that matter, not only your day, but actual topics, things happen in life, happening things in the city. And there's a lot of anticipation in planning the second date, especially if it's a concert or you're going somewhere you're going to want to try. Again, just staying connected with communication helps you create that deeper connection within the relationship. And then when it's time to have a conversation about the relationship, becoming more committed, you've already done a good bit of investing. You've laid the groundwork with a solid communication and respect. And there's a lot less uncertainty. There's a lot less gray zones, you know, because you're always typically planning on the next time you're going to see one another.
Right. So we're going to talk about that conversation, that important conversation about, you know, who are we, what are we, where are we at? Because I know a lot of women are unsure about when to have that conversation if they're feeling uncertain in the relationships. We're going to talk about that, but I wanted to just backtrack a little bit and ask, because I hear a lot of women complain about the texting that he never calls. How do you open things up and suggest, invite a man to call us and let him know we really appreciate jumping on the phone occasionally?
And I love that line. I'd really love to hear from you. I'd really love to talk to you. I'd love to hear your voice. So again, like being assertive in the beginning, I'm available for a date this weekend if you'd like to plan one. You know, that one shows your interest. It negates the risk of rejection. With men, the biggest issue is they're not going to do a lot of things that are going to risk rejection. So for women, when you take away that risk to get invited out on the first date, then you're going to, if the man's interested in you and interested in meeting you, he's going to hop on that opportunity because that doesn't happen every day. And he's also going to be, you know, the type of man you want to attract is going to be attracted by that level of confidence. So, and ask me, I know I've got, ask me the question again.
Yeah, I think we covered it. So how do we ask him or let him know that we'd really appreciate him calling regularly?
I think we get a good enough segment there. Otherwise I can expand on it, but
no, that's good. That's good. What I also wanted to ask is that conversation. So we've been dating for a few weeks or a few months and still haven't really talked about if we're exclusive, who we are to each other. How do we approach that conversation? Is there a good time to do it?
I'm not a believer in there's a perfect time to do certain things because timelines on relationships can get collapsed. You know, I think when people are ready to find their soulmate, I encourage my clients don't put a time frame on the trajectory of the relationship necessarily. I think when you are utilizing courtship, which is a more formal way of dating, you actually have planned dates. You know when you're seeing this person, you're seeing them consistently, you're communicating regularly. When you're developing a deeper bond emotionally, where you guys are sharing things, you know, at this point, if you've been on, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever the number of dates, you know, you've got several hours probably in each of those dates invested. And if you've been communicating in between, you're going to naturally start to become much more bonded to this person, developing trust. And if you aren't developing trust, then, you know, there's something to take a deeper look at. But as you're growing your trust and you're growing your attraction, you're growing your mutual desire to see one another, and there's mutual respect in the relationship, I think having that conversation about, I really have a lot of respect for you. I think with men, it's really, again, showing that gratitude. I'm really grateful for everything you've brought into my life. And I really value and enjoy our time together. And I would like for us to be exclusive. I have no desire to date anyone else. And I think you go back to that core desire of, I came into this looking for a relationship. I have enjoyed my time with you. And if you know that that's what they want from the beginning as well, they're telling you, I'm looking for a relationship, and you're naturally moving in that area, that trajectory, you have that mutual desire, that conversation is a lot easier. With casual dating, it is really hard to segue over into the exclusivity conversation if you've both been seeing other people for the last month or two. But with courtship, because both of you are dedicated to creating a different experience, you're communicating differently than you would casual dating. You're really working on building a deeper level of intimacy with someone. That conversation to be exclusive naturally flows. And what I see with my clients is it naturally flows and surfaces much earlier because they don't have any desire to be with someone else. They really want to explore this with them. And they're excited about what they've created. And so is there a perfect time? No, I think that in their relationship. I think when you are determined to create a high caliber, lasting relationship, you do things like focus on the connection, the communication, the courtship, so that when the commitment conversation comes up, you and he already have clarity from the beginning about what you both desire. The only question is not if we want a relationship, but if we want to move forward, deepening our relationship together. And I think that's such a natural conversation to navigate, because if you continue to see one another and both of you are putting in that kind of effort, there's usually not someone else that they're also planning dates for, typically. And so it is just very natural. You want to spend what time you have with them, and the same with you. And so I think it just happens.
Okay. So there is some fairly mixed opinions in the dating world about whether single women should just focus on dating one person, or whether we should keep our options open, so to speak, and date a number of different guys until something becomes a little bit more serious. And I know that there are pros and cons of both. What's your personal opinion about dating multiple people?
I think, I know, both personally and professionally working with clients, oftentimes, especially if you're using online dating, you're meeting a lot of different people. And until you meet those people in person, you really don't know what the connection is. And so I think just by virtue of that dating method, you've got to get out and you've got to meet some people. And so you're going to have dates, that overlap over a period of time until you actually meet someone. I think that it is natural in our dating culture to go out with more than one person, during a period of time. I think when you get to the point where you really desire a relationship, you've got to get out and meet people. You've got to have dates. I think that, and I know that the experience my clients have had is, when you meet someone really incredible and you're not missing out on anything else when you're just kind of dating them. So I think in the beginning, you're going to date several people. I think with women, naturally, we kind of gravitate, like there's one that kind of rises to the top, for lack of a better, they get you more of your attention. They're on your mind more. You really want to explore things with them. And again, if you've been really clear that what you're looking for is a committed relationship from day one, and they've been clear, then, you can kind of start to figure out, okay, is he spending his time with me? I'm spending my time with him. I don't have the desire to date anybody else. I am not a big fan of dating for having distraction. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because certainly many of us have done it. It's just, I think when my clients come to me, they are ready to find forever love. And if they find a high caliber person, I think it's for many of them, it has been a matter of respect. Like I have limited time. I don't really want to date a lot of different people at the moment. I really want to focus on kind of what's happening here in this relationship. And I want to be free emotionally, free physically, to really fully invest in this one. And I know the theories of if you're dating more than one person, you can divide your attention, you're less distracted, there's less expectations, you don't come off as needy. I get all of that. And I think that works if your focus is casual dating. I think at least what I work on with my clients is, yes, you've got to get out and date people. So that means you're going to meet and go out with a lot of people, different people in the beginning. But when you find someone you really like and you were coming at this both that you're really looking for a lifelong relationship, I think the dynamic is so different. And I think that, and I know that what they experience is, especially if it is that soulmate attraction, which is what I love to hear from my clients in the beginning, you know, they have a couple of dates and they have no desire to date anyone else. And because their relationship is growing at such an exponential rate, there's good connection, good chemistry, good communication, they're going on dates, they're spending time, quality time together, doing things they both enjoy, then I think that problem and that question naturally takes care of itself in the courtship process, and pretty quickly.
What's been your experience? No, not every time a couple ends up together, the start is as perhaps as romantic and as mutual as what we would have liked. What's your theory about whether when two people are right for each other, they know instantly, or we can meet someone and not necessarily be that sold on them, but they can grow on us? What's been your experience and thoughts about how that initial attraction and chemistry, how important that is in the early stages of dating?
I think that the chemistry and sort of that just innate soul level of connection is possible. My clients have described and experienced it. I've experienced it. I've seen it. The psychology of, I think that there are some of us who are so attracted physically to someone immediately. Now that may be the extent of the connection, or that may be the beginning of something really beautiful. So I think, pretty quickly, the reason I encourage my clients to get out and have dates, you talk to somebody for a while, don't spend a week talking to them, spend chatting, plan the date, get out and meet them, because you're going to know physically how your body reacts when you see them. You're going to know, like, is there the chemistry? Are there pheromones? Am I totally attracted to this guy? And then I think oftentimes attraction grows. So sometimes there may be, the chemistry, the interest, the, mystique, and I don't like to use that word. And I certainly don't like the word mystery in dating. I like to have some clarity around things. But I think that you meet someone, and I think for women in particular, maybe things aren't all hot and steamy right there at the first moment, the first date, but as they talk, your heart melts. As they share more of themselves, you fall deeper in love. So I think I know for a lot of women, the more the person may not initially just be like smoking hot, and in their profile pictures, they were the least likely probably to be the one that you had the hottest chemistry with and the deepest, almost spiritual connection with. But that happens the way it happens. And I think oftentimes it's there. I think that it grows. I think if there's a mutual attraction and mutual interest in one another and learning about one another and growing, I think that there's a lot of potential for a woman to become even more attracted to this man as she learns about his personality, his values, his principles, as she falls in love with him. And we all know, and that explains a lot of why sometimes you'll see couples and you're like, they said they look like a little bit of a mismatch, but, she fell madly in love with him, and it wasn't because he looked like a male model, or country music star. It was because he was the total package. It was because there was that, obviously, there was some innate physical attraction, but that there also were all these other amazing things about men that women really in our heart, can warm us and fill us up, and they create these fulfilling relationships with us by virtue of being who they are, and we appreciate who they are and all of their diversity and abundance. With men, oftentimes it can be a little slightly different, because I think sometimes, they're looking for that stronger physical attraction in the beginning. But I think for women, because we connect so emotionally to words and actions, as opposed to just what we see, there's a different sensory experience sometimes for women. I definitely think love and attraction can grow. I think that deep chemistry, some of that is very innate, but women, we fall in love all the time with amazing men. My clients fall in love, and it might not be the person they initially swiped on and Bumble that they thought was going to be the love of life or the one they would marry, but it was there, and you just can't deny it sometimes. And sometimes it's there, but there's not all the other things that make you fall deeper in love with them. And so you've got to meet them. You've got to get out from behind the computer, from behind the phone, and physically get out and meet these amazing men in order to create a relationship.
Yes, and there's actually an experiment that it just reminded me of that.
Mm.
And they assessed the difference between men and women and how they rated the attractiveness of just random pictures of random people. And what they noticed was that as women, we have the ability to rate someone either up or down by 3 points based on their personality. So we might initially rate someone as a 6, and we can potentially go up to a 9 once we actually experience that person and their personality, and vice versa. Whereas men are only able to do that up and down by about a 1 point rate. So if he thinks we're a 7 to look at, he might really only be able to go to an 8, which I thought was really interesting. And I think so it does give us, I guess, a little bit of a benchmark in terms of, I mean, we obviously don't want to date someone who we're not attracted to at all, but
Right.
if you're repulsed by the idea of kissing someone right off the bat, then maybe that's not a good start. But just knowing that we can definitely go up by quite a few points in terms of someone's attractiveness to us based on all of those beautiful qualities that you just spoke about.
Yeah. And, I've worked with men and women. And so, a lot of what you've just described is very consistent with the experiences I've had coaching both men and women, and the difference in the conversation and what I shared. Absolutely. That's fantastic to hear. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about your beautiful gift that you're going to be sharing with the ladies. I know we've mentioned a little bit about that.
Yes. So I am sharing with you the Single and Over It guide. And so there are 3 key areas to that guide. Number 1 is getting clarity. Who do you want to call into your life? What's the man like? What are his values, his traits, his personality? All those things we just talked about that can move a man up or down on the scale. Get really clear about who it is you want to attract. Clarity is the number 1 thing. And then, a lot of women will ask, how do I know when I'm ready to date? There's not a magical number of months or years or days. And there's some questions there to go through, like, why is now a good time to find the love of my life? And just kind of explore. Those are good questions for journaling, just to better understand, like, I'm ready to find lasting love, or maybe there's some things that need to be healed. I'm just not quite ready to trust again. So there's a series of questions there. The second piece is communication and connection. So I have listed 6 questions that you can ask when you're texting or when you're communicating on a dating app or in person to get to know the person better. And again, those 6 questions are key ideas in how you're going to be able to find an amazing first date and plan that, because you talk about your favorite parts of the city, your favorite things to do. It naturally flows into planning that first date. And then I'll talk about some date ideas. And the last part of it is the things to include in your dating profile. So, like, things you might not think of, but when you think of presenting yourself to the world, you're not just throwing together a dating profile, you're actually putting together something that you're going to use to attract an amazing man so that you can engage in more courtship. And so we have clarity, communication, connection, and the courtship, so that you also then can move on to creating a committed, lifelong, forever love relationship.
That sounds amazing. Make sure, everyone, that you do click the button below and grab yourself a copy of that beautiful guide. Laura, is there anything that we've missed? And I know there's probably so much, and there's a lot in the guide that the girls can access themselves. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to our session today that we missed as far as this beautiful courtship model that we've been talking about?
So I think one of the biggest pieces, we sort of touched on this briefly, is really taking a look at, is there heartbreak to be healed? And I work with women and men. I would do a lot of really deep healing transformational work to work with women so that they open their heart up to loving again. And then that's why I really coach a courtship model, because they know that if a client comes to me and they know they're ready to find forever love, let's figure out what's stopping you, what's getting in the way. Is there heartbreak to heal, so that you can engage in this courtship model moving forward? Because casual dating can be really frustrating, confusing, and you're kind of in no man's land, right? Most of the time. Moving toward courtship, and again, then moving through the things we talked about: communication, connection, commitment, courtship, and you've got your clarity. So I think just the biggest piece is it's really switching the way you think about dating. It's recognizing you're deserving and worthy of a really amazing date. You're worthy of a man planning a date for you. The man who is your forever love is happy to plan a date for you because he wants to have you captivated spend time with you, get to know you, to create a deeper connection. I think that's one of the beautiful things about using courtship, is that there's so much respect there. There's honesty, transparency, because you both know what the desire is and what you both are looking for as a relationship. And so navigating it based on even just both having that knowledge from the beginning just really shifts the dynamics into helping you create that finding forever love relationship that you desire.
There's some incredibly beautiful and powerful tips for everyone to take away in terms of creating a beautiful relationship and navigating from meeting someone through to commitment. So I love what you've shared with us today, Laura. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. We are almost at the end of our virtual retreat, and I can't wait to join you tomorrow. So please jump in. I'm going to be having a conversation just with you all about heartbreak, breakups, exes, how we release our attachment to our exes, and also for all of those of you that do identify with the anxious attachment style. If you haven't done that, the link is going to be in the email tomorrow. But yeah, I'm really excited to join you tomorrow in the virtual retreat room for my personal love transformation class. And thanks again, Laura, and thanks everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.